Turning to the Derby. In the tables that follow, a top is defined as more than 1 point faster than the previous top. A pair is defined as within 1 point either way of the previous top. An off race is more than 1 point through 4 points worse than that top. And an X is more than 4 points worse than the top. We didn't use the 2020 Derby in any of our studies because it was run in September, not May. As we say every year, it is worth remembering that most Derby runners, despite all the talk of how great they are training, will not run their race. About 2/3 run off races or X's, and only 2 or 3 horses a year run new tops, and some of those are too slow to matter, which means in general you want a horse that is already fast enough to be competitive. This year, there are a lot of horses with tops in about a 2 or 3 point range, but the cutoff point seems to be around the 2 level. There are only 5 horses that have run faster than that going into the Derby. Anyone else would almost definitely need to run a new top or gain a lot by saving ground. In terms of number of starts as a 3-year-old, 2 preps produces the most new tops, but 3 preps produces about the same percentage of combined new and paired tops. 4 or more starts as a 3-year-old has clearly been worse. The 2 patterns that have produced good performances in the Derby are those coming in off a pair of tops and coming in off a small new top. Both of those patterns have yielded over 40% new or paired tops. Every other pattern has produced terrible results, including those coming in following bigger tops. Most of those run X's. The other thing that turns out to be significant is the amount of development from the horse's 2-year-old top to his 3-year-old top. Horses that have already developed more than 4 points almost never run new tops in the Derby, and more than half run X's. So this year, we decided to try something new. We've established individual criteria for horses that run well in the Derby. Horses with 3 or less preps, horses coming in off either a pair of tops or a small new top, and horses who have not developed more than 4 points from a 2-year-old top. What if we broke it down by seeing how horses did that checked all 3 of those boxes or fewer? Not surprisingly, there was direct correlation between the number of boxes checked and how the horses ran. And the ones that checked all 3 boxes at least paired their top more than half the time. But remember, that just means the horse ran well relative to his previous top, not well compared to the other horses. He still has to be fast enough for it to matter. This year, there are a number of horses that couldn't check all the boxes. They don't have a 2-year-old top because they didn't start at 2. Horses don't start at 2 because they're not ready to, and they then have to break their maiden and earn enough points to qualify for the Derby in just a few months. In figure terms, it's asking them to come a long way in a short time. And while a decent number have been able to pair up their top in the Derby, only 1 has been able to go forward again. As always, the Derby has a huge field, and as we said, many of these have top figures within a small figure range. There also isn't that much early speed, which means the field is likely to bunch up, and ground loss will be a major factor. Last year, Medina Spirit got a rail trip and crossed the wire first despite running nowhere near the best figure in the race. And something like that could easily happen again. Each path on each turn is worth 1/2 Thoro-Graph point at this distance. So if one horse gets a rail trip and another is 3 wide on both turns, that's a 2-point advantage to the inside horse. Flip them, and it's a 4-point swing. Post position, running style, and jockey's tendencies will be huge in this one. Finally, there's the Baffert off question. We ran the recent Yak Team starters, and if there's a difference, we haven't seen it yet. We're going to treat it as a non-factor, but we will be watching any other runners he has at Churchill this week. Barber Road isn't fast enough, and with 4 preps this year, is unlikely to move forward. Charger did not race at 2, but moved forward quickly to pair up good ones in his last two. This colt checks two of the boxes and is close to being fast enough, but would need a forward move to have a real shot to win. Pletcher has run 58 horses in the Derby, and exactly one has run a new top. We're not willing to buck those odds. We can see him getting a piece of this and can see him being a force in the division over the summer. Classic Causeway came out firing in his debut, but hasn't moved forward at all since. Even if you forgive his last, he's not fast enough on his best and not getting better. Crown Pride won in Dubai last time with what clearly was the best race of his life. He's had 6 weeks since, but off that big jump, another forward move is unlikely, and he would need one. Cyber Knife is out of a mare who got much better with age. This colt checks all three boxes, and his pattern looks even better if you take out the January start and blinkers. He would need a new top to have a shot here, but take note. Cox had his first two Derby starters last year. Mandaloon ran a new top, and Essential Quality paired his top, which was the best figure in the race. This is one of the most likely horses in this year's Derby to run a new top. Epicenter qualifies on all three counts, though his race on December 26 puts him close to 4 prep territory. The bigger problem is that his last two were not as good as they looked. He saved ground, while Smile Happy, Zandon, and others raced outside. That means he would need a new top to seriously contend, which doesn't happen that often in the Derby. And though Steve Asmus has been great at a lot of things, getting horses to run well in the Derby has not been one of them. As one of the favorites, this one is not for us. Ethereal Road doesn't check any of the boxes and is too slow. Happy Jack didn't run last year and hasn't run fast enough to be relevant this year. Messier is by a sire whose runners averaged 2 points better going long out of a mare that got better with age and distance. This colt established a strong top last year, broke through in his 3-year-old debut, and paired it up in his last, the strongest prep this year. Messier checks all the boxes, is fast enough, and has early speed, which could be very useful here. Mo Donegal was a decent 2-year-old, but only won the Remsen because he saved ground, as Zandon earned a much better figure. He has moved forward gradually this year and now checks all three boxes. But like Epicenter and Stablemate Charge It, he needs a new top. And again, Pletcher has gotten one new top from 58 starters. A pair of his last is much more likely. Pioneer of Medina was a slow 2-year-old, jumped forward in February, then paired up in his last. He's not fast enough, and he's probably done all the developing he's going to do in the short term. Rattle and Roll jumped forward to win a stake last fall at a time when McPeak was getting a lot of big figures. He's never gotten back to that level, and even if he did, it wouldn't be good enough here. We're not sure how Rich Strike even made it onto the also eligible list, but he's way too slow to compete with these. Simplification, it's much better this year than last, but that's not a plus. He has already developed a lot. He's had 4 preps, and we don't like the backward move last time. He doesn't check any of the boxes, and while he could pair his top, the jump he needs is unlikely. Smile Happy ran a big number last fall, basically repeated that effort at the fairgrounds and inched forward last time. In both starts this year he was wide and earned as good a figure as the winner. Smile Happy is the forgotten horse. He checks all 3 boxes and is fast enough to win, but he has to avoid getting yet another wide trip. Summer is Tomorrow has already outrun his dam and siblings. He's not fast enough to compete with these, and with 4 preps is unlikely to jump. Taba cost an awful lot of money, which didn't look well spent when he didn't start at 2. But his debut was big, and his last, at 2 turns, was the best figure anyone in this race has ever run. On the one hand, the repeat of that effort probably would get it done. On the other, how much did it take out of a horse that wasn't ready to start until March? Good question. 20 Port exploded last time, but with a lot of development, 4 preps, and only 3 weeks rest, a bounce is likely. Tiz the Bomb started his career a full year ago and has made 8 starts. Even if he's as good on dirt, he's too slow. White Barrio has never gone back. Every figure is better than the one that preceded it. He also has a favorable pattern and there's only 2 preps. The negatives are that he's already developed 6 points from his 2-year-old top, and Joseph hasn't done as well at Churchill as other places. Zandon earned a better figure than the winner in the Remsen and a better figure than Epicenter at Fairgrounds due to wide trips. This one checks all the boxes. Strong 2-year-old top, 2 preps, slight forward move, and he's fast enough. Also, Chad Brown has been on fire, getting a lot of new tops. Zozos didn't run at 2, but paired good ones in his last 2. This colt is similar to Charge It, except a point slower. But Cox has already shown he can get horses to run tops in the Derby, so a forward move is not impossible. As usual, we will divide the Derby horses into groups. The D group has horses we think have absolutely no shot to get into any exotics. Barber Road, Classic Causeway, Ethereal Road, Happy Jack, Rattle and Roll, Rich Strike, Summer is Tomorrow, and Tiz the Bomb. The C group contains horses that we don't like and can't use, but who have run a figure that puts them within range of getting into the exotics. Crown Pride, Pioneer and Medina, Simplification, and 20 Port make up this group. This year, the figure range is so tight and there are so many good patterns that we are assigning both Bs and B pluses. The Bs are Epicenter, Modonigal, and Zozos. Those 3 are unlikely to win, but with a good trip could get a check. The B plus horses are Charge It, Cyberknife, and White Barrio. Those horses have a good chance to get a check, and it wouldn't be a total shock if one of them won. But the A group probably contains the winner. Messier, Smile Happy, and Zandon check every box for us, and in many years, any one of them would be a clear pick. We also have to include Taba, just because he's the fastest horse and hasn't done anything wrong. So, the Thoro-Graph bottom line, the 2022 Derby. White Barrio, Cyberknife, and Zozos were hurt by the draw. We were all set to pitch Epicenter all the way out of all exotics if he drew outside. As it is, he could save ground and get a piece of this. Smile Happy and Messier both drew very well. There's a decent chance Velasquez can do on Messier what he did on Medina Spirit last year. The race shape shows he has shown the most speed, and if he gets clear and saves ground, Messier will be very tough. Zandon drew well enough. It's unlikely Pratt can work out an inside trip, but he can probably avoid getting caught too wide. We have no idea what Taba will do or how Smith will ride him, but we're not going to let him beat us. So those are the ones we like. Smile Happy, Messier, Zandon, and Taba.